Despite my love for traveling abroad, I often forget how huge my own country is, and for the longest stretch in a while, I actually took a bit of a trip across some US states I've never been to. With the exception of Tennessee, I've been there but not to Memphis. This journey essentially started in Chicago and then went down into St. Louis, into Memphis, across Arkansas, Oklahoma, up into Kansas, before ending in Denver, Colorado. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into this and talk about some things found across the Midwest and the West. Been awake for about 8 hours now and starting this little Midwest/West US trip. Basically to regroup, we're stepping in front of the St. Joseph's Ukrainian church. Feels like we're at the Kremlin or something. Like, I can't believe this exists in the US. For the most part, we basically stopped here because it was close enough to the airport and could get our bearings a little bit. But as you can see, I was very fascinated that there's actually a building that looks like this in the United States. It has a very modern roof comprising of 13 gold domes which symbolize the 12 apostles, as well as Jesus Christ himself as the largest center dome. So for the brief time in Chicago, it only made sense to try some true Chicago-style deep dish pizza. Let's see what it's like. It is pretty good. That's what it looks like. I'll be honest, a little overrated, but not bad. Even deep in the suburbs of Chicago, you're still getting full Chicago prices. Like I said, that was good, but I don't know that I recommend the deep dish Chicago style for the price you'll pay out here. The main draw for Chicago was Millennium Park, which is a public park located in what is known as the Loop Community Area. This opened in 2004, is right near Lake Michigan, which covers about 24.5 acres of the northwestern Grant Park. This features a lot of what is known as postmodern architecture, as well as the Tribune Ice Skating Rink, the BP Pedestrian Bridge, Joan W. and Irvin B. Harris Theater, and there are all sorts of pavilions, works of art. It gives a nice backdrop in front of the main metropolitan area of Chicago. The main centerpiece is the J. Pritzker Pavilion. This actually has 4,000 seats and a lot of lawn seating that can sit up to 7,000 total. After a bit of a 40-minute drive, we've made it to Millennium Park, the part I was looking forward to. Traveling here with my friend Ethan. And you can see behind us, we got the backdrop of Chicago. It is indeed a very beautiful park. There's actually sort of some water play areas over here for your children. We're currently looking for the, what did you say it's actually called? The Cloud Gate, but otherwise known as the Bean. That's kind of the bigger point of being here, at least for me. And alas, we have made it. You know I love big, stupid architecture. A fine example. Also a big fan of this building. If you want to let me know what that's called, if I can, look it up. Right there behind that is one of the Trope Towers. Believe it or not, this is actually 3 stories tall, completely made of reflective steel. This piece costed about $23 million to make, which is more than the original estimate of $6 million. It took 168 stainless steel plates welded together, and its highly polished exterior has pretty much no visible seams. Ahead of us here, we have Lake Michigan. This is now the second of the 5 Great Lakes I've ever been to. The first one being Lake Erie when I was but a small child. Oh man, that warms up the feet. If you're a fan of the director Michael Mann, perhaps you know the movie Thief, and a decent chunk of that movie was filmed here. Ethan is a lot more knowledgeable than me in this regard, so I'm going to go ahead and let him take it over for a sec.
So here I am in front of the Green Mill Cocktail Lounge, as seen in Michael Mann's 1981 masterpiece, Thief. Wasn't sure if this existed, because in the film, James Caan blows it up, but clearly it's still here. Looks exactly like it did in the movie. Blows my mind.
So stopping in St. Louis means you pretty much have to see the Gateway Arch. You can buy a ticket to go up here for a decent price, and they'll give you a whole run of the history of the arch before getting inside of a car and going to the very top to get some awesome views. It's 630 feet tall total, being completely clad in stainless steel, and it's actually the world's tallest arch. It's a bit of a monument to the westward expansion in the US, and officially it's dedicated to quote-unquote the American people. Some simply call it the Gateway to the West, and the entire national park is absolutely worth the stop. It wasn't a very far walk to get to the Gateway Arch. It's actually a whole national park. As you can see, we did indeed make it to the very top of the arch. It was a fun little ride. Met some really fun people in the car. On the way to the Forest Garden, we decided to stop at the Cathedral Basilica of St. Louis. It's not as often as you get to see these as you do in Europe, but I really love architecture like this. Anyone who knows me knows I'm a slut for churches and castles and cathedrals. Looks like they actually just let out, as it is indeed a Sunday. Last stop for St. Louis is the Forest Garden Park. It's actually huge, and there's no way we're going to cover probably even half the territory, but you know, it's a beautiful place in the middle of the actual city proper, kind of on each side. Hold on, we got some bikers coming my way. The Forest Park is pretty massive and actually kind of reminds me of Central Park in New York City. It covers a total of 1,326 acres, and it opened in 1876, more than a decade after its proposal. This has actually hosted the 1904 Summer Olympics before, as well as the Louisiana Purchase Exposition of the same year. Millions of dollars have been carried out in restoration through a public and private partnership, and it has a lot of meadows, trees, ponds, man-made lakes, as well as freshwater streams. This has been very advantageous as it reduced flooding, and it's actually attracted a lot of variety when it comes to birds and wildlife. The next stop was for a brief time in Memphis, Tennessee, and as you might know, I am a huge fan of the Memphis Pyramid. I actually made an entire video on this that I will link to, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this one. Of course, we had to go inside the Bass Pro Pyramid, otherwise known as the Memphis Pyramid, that was once a venue, actually. Right here we have a view from the very top after taking the Skylift elevator. Fun fact, this is actually taller than the Statue of Liberty. I don't think I included that in my video. Get a good look at the Mississippi River over there. And of course the top of the pyramid. Perhaps stop at the bar inside to get a drink. In case you're wondering, this is actually what it looks like at night. It is actually just as beautiful, if not more beautiful. I mean, check out that light. If this isn't the reason to go to Memphis, then perhaps you'd rather see Graceland. This was once owned by the famous singer Elvis Presley. He's buried here, and several of his relatives are buried next to him, and it was actually the first ever site recognized for significance related to rock and roll. It costs over $80 per ticket, but it is well worth your money considering how much you get. The tour of Graceland begins at the front of his house, and you can see almost every single room, and descriptions of the significance of the room are in it. Following this, you get to go outside, see all of the land itself, some of the side rooms with a lot of artifacts that are important, and of course over by the pool is where you see the actual grave site. Afterwards, there's an opportunity to see all of Elvis's cars, other collectibles, and there's even a room dedicated to famous people who took influence from Presley himself. Originally today was supposed to have a stop at the Bill Clinton Museum in Little Rock, but we kind of ran out of time and decided it'd be best to go right into the greater Ozark or interior Highland area. So this is actually part of the Ouachita Mountains, and where we are is known as Hot Springs National Park. And I believe this specifically is what's called the Zigzag Mountains. Looking down here, you can actually kind of see the town of Hot Springs and evidently hear it. These are actually some pretty narrow trails. We went down really steep hills to get here. There are actually a lot of historic bathhouses in the downtown area of Hot Springs. It's kind of a neat, cute little town. We weren't really planning on staying here, but I'm kind of glad we decided to stay here for a night. The hotel is certainly better than most of the Super 8s we've been staying in getting across the country. But yeah, check out this architecture. There's all sorts of businesses and shops. Currently looking for a bar. Today was mostly spent driving into Oklahoma, and actually I met up with one of my friends, Ryan. What's up, Ryan? It's great to chat with you. We are now at a place called Pops with yet another giant piece of amazing architecture, because I seem to love those, especially on this trip. And I found this. It's actually really good. A cheers, sherry banana soda with your buddy Fidel Castro. Admittedly, a bunch of this part of the trip was a lot of driving, but the nice part about going through Oklahoma is that there are a lot of native reservations and nations. Specifically, we decided to stop at the Museum of the Seminole Native American People. They actually developed in Florida, but today a lot of them live in Oklahoma and comprise 3 federally recognized tribes. The museums are typically free in the native nations, and you can get all sorts of information there. There are actually several different Seminole Wars throughout the US history, mostly around American conquest and pushing further. The first Seminole War is actually in 1819, which is from the United States and Spain signing the Adams-Onis Treaty. It wouldn't be until 1832 until the US promised lands west of the Mississippi River. However, many remained and prepared for war, as white colonizers continued to press for their removal. Florida Seminoles today say that they're actually the only tribe in the U.S. to have never actually signed a peace treaty with the U.S. government. Of course, the American Civil War had a big impact on this as well, and there were more Seminole wars afterwards and into the early 20th century. The day after Oklahoma was basically an entire day of driving because there really wasn't anything to do in Wichita or this area of Kansas as a whole, which I will be honest, was definitely a lot of flat, plain, open nothingness. But it was worth it getting to Denver. Finally made it to the main destination state, and Denver, Colorado, where we'll be staying the next 3 nights, and actually most of Saturday as well, since it's a late flight out of here. We'll be starting this journey at Fiction Brewing Company. Actually, I think it's called Fiction Beer Company. It's supposed to be one of the most famous ones in Colorado. Perhaps the part I've been most looking forward to on this trip, other than maybe the Memphis Pyramid in Graceland, is the Garden of the Gods just outside of Colorado Springs. I'm gonna be out of breath pretty quickly because the elevations here is a lot higher than what I'm used to in Pennsylvania, where we are. It's about 300 feet above sea level. Here we're about 5,000, maybe more. I think I know the Denver, I know the capital is 1 mile, and this is definitely higher than that yet. So yeah, we're definitely up there pretty high. The Garden of the Gods is over 1,300 acres of public park located just outside of Colorado Springs. This was designated a national landmark in 1971 and to this day is free to enter. Originally it was called Red Rock Coral by the Europeans. Archaeological evidence actually shows the prehistoric people visited the Garden of the Gods probably around 1300 BC. Up through 250 BC, Native American people definitely camped in the park, and there's a good chance that the wildlife and plant life is what drew a lot of people to this area. The rocks also made for some very nice shelter. In the late 1900s, Charles Eliot Perkins purchased this. Upon his death, his family gave the land to the city of Colorado Springs, and the provision was that it always remain a public park. I was glad to see that that is indeed still the case. There are some very specific famous formations such as the Three Graces, the Balanced Rock, a segment that looks like cathedral spires. In the background you can see Pikes Peak, which is the highest summit of the southern front range of the Rocky Mountains. It's a grand total of 14,000 feet above sea level, and if you decide to make a trek to the top, bring winter clothes even if it's summertime. Perhaps we're at my favorite part of all of this, where you can see all of the Rocky Mountains ahead of you, but then the park is behind you. It's actually a pretty easy climb to get up here. The last main thing for today is to go to the Red Rocks Amphitheater. You can tell by my voice I'm a little winded. You know, I'm determined to at least check this out. I don't even know if I'll be able to see the amphitheater from here, but it's a solid spot up here. Yeah, just as I suspected, we were pretty much denied entry to the amphitheater, but there is a pretty solid park around it we're kind of nosing around in. Like I said, I'm very tired from the earlier hike. I kind of think these are meant for one per day, but you can't beat these immaculate views. On a good day, Red Rocks Amphitheater is probably about 40 minutes from downtown Denver. It's often said that you should add about 30 minutes more to whatever you expect your arrival time to be for somewhere. Red Rocks Amphitheater is basically an open-air amphitheater kind of carved into the rocks, roughly 10 miles south of Denver. The park itself has several large sandstone formations nearby, and it's best recognized by its 2 massive monoliths named Ship Rock and Creation Rock. Reconstruction of the stage roof actually began as late as October of 2020, which was completed only the following summer. Of course, the features that surround the amphitheater were formed millions of years ago, and the grounds were likely used by the Ute tribe in the earlier times. A big boom in population following the Colorado Gold Rush drew a lot of people to this, and it was originally named the Garden of the Angels. The earliest documented performance at the amphitheater was way back in 1906, that being the grand opening of the Garden of the Titans put on by publisher John Brisbane Walker. I highly recommend getting on the Denver trolley if you ever find yourself downtown. That was pretty sweet. The last real thing we have on the list is just to check out, actual downtown Denver, and as you can see, it looks pretty nice. It's actually really walkable once you get down here. I'm not going to talk about downtown Denver extensively because I did cover a decent amount of that in my Colorado video, which I will link right here. Bit of a journey towards the Denver State Capitol. As you can see, we're going by all the high rises out here, away from the more trendy downtown area. This this is it. And it really is one of the most beautiful Capitol buildings I've ever seen. Granted, I haven't seen too many of them. As you can tell by the sound behind me, there's some kind of event going on back here. I guess it's a giant outdoor venue in that general area. You might be able to tell, but the Denver Capitol is actually very reminiscent of the United States Capitol. It was constructed in the 1890s with white granite, and it opened in 1894. The most distinctive feature is the gold dome that was added in 1908, commemorating the Colorado Gold Rush. It is indeed free to enter and take self-guided tours if you don't want to pay for an actual guided one, but by this point in the trip we were pretty exhausted and spent the rest of the evening and the next day back home where we were staying. And that covers the general gist of this whole trip. What do you think about all these places? Have you ever been to them, and did I miss anything significant? I'm sure I will at least be making another stop out of Denver in the near future. So let me know what you think is worth seeing. Until we meet again,